Anyone aspiring to achieve great things in life has to venture into the gates. Walker says we need bait. They are a bit confused there. Walker explains. There's so much unknown inside the gate that we can't just go in without a plan. It's these variables that cause most people to die in there. That's why we need a bait slave. The girl then asks, are you trying to hire a slave to distract the monsters? For me, it's not a bad decision. We see some guys trapped and the slave trader talking. Welcome to the hiring market operated by the Gaper merchants. Everyone here is perfect to be bait slaves. Feel free to choose. Laughing like a psychopath, he says, just use one of these, you'll see how good they are. I recommend these two here. They are young. They are the liveliest bait slaves you'll find. Walker agrees, saying he'll buy the two then. The merchant says it's a great choice and wishes them a good adventure. They are then in front of a giant red portal. Walker warns when you enter the gate, mark the pillar. That's so they know how many groups have entered there. And apparently at this moment, there's no mark made. This means they are the first ones to enter here. He asks if the group is ready and everyone says let's go. They then enter. As they pass through, Raymond keeps saying it's very strange to use a portal like this. When he looks up, he sees giant mushrooms. It's the first adventure for this gang, so everyone is impressed with this mystical place. A completely different atmosphere than they imagined. Walker tells everyone to relax and to move on. Usually, the entrance to a gate is far from where there are monsters, so for now they are safe. The only problem is that you can't leave through the entrance. Because of this, the priority at the beginning is to find the exit. At this moment, the girl takes a glance back, but when she sees there's a monster about to bite her, the next second and half of her body is already being swallowed. Everyone looks back and gets scared. Raymond shouts her name, Charlotte. Brotha, I think it's too late for us to learn her name. This creature is giant and has a legion around it. Everyone is frozen, not knowing what to do. Walker pulls out his staff and conjures a fire arrow. The arrow goes straight to the monster's face and pierces it. The beast even spat out Charlotte. Brotha, I don't know if she's alive, but at least she's out of the mouth. Walker shouts that something's wrong and says to tie the baits to the tree. One of the slaves asks to go along, but the chubby guy points a blade and says, just stay still here with your mouth shut. Raven also apologizes, but ties them to the tree and runs away with everyone. One of the slaves is grabbed by the waist and is about to be bitten, and the other one already has claws almost tearing his back. The whole group is fleeing with Charlotte, who's on their backs there, more dead than alive. Brotha, I think she's gonna have to go for reincarnation for another work. This one's done for the girl. Walker warns that this adventure has already failed. Winning this is no longer important. They need to escape now, while Raymond is losing it, breathing heavily and whispering that it's over. The chubby guy grabs him and tells him to wake up to life. He needs to focus or they'll all die. Although they failed this time, they can prepare and come back again. The important thing is to focus and not give up. But before the motivational speech ends, a creature is about to crush him. Walker shouts for his friend. However, he is completely crushed. Collapsed on the ground, Raymond is trembling there, and he doesn't even understand what happened properly. Walker is the only one who does something. He pulls out his staff once again to give him another fire arrow. However, like an On Life Ends girl, this beast is very talented with its tongue and encircles the man's head. Poor guy can't do anything, and he's being pulled into the big mouth, and he's already been swallowed. Only poor Raymond is left, who is now useless. He's there, trembling, fallen, trying to escape, stumbles like a fool. The monster is coming from behind. Another tongue's work, another bite, and he's agonizing, but there's a foot on the branch, and while Raymond is agonizing, one of those slaves watches. Raymond says, hey Bait, are you alive, man? What a relief, help me here. Brotha, I think there's no way to save you anymore. Poor guy is trembling all over. Raymond says all the members are already dead. It's just you and me. Bait, sorry for earlier, man. That wasn't my intention. Hand trembling, almost losing his life. You can't win alone. Please. But Bait is standing there very calmly. He keeps shouting and says, stop looking and help me, you bastard. Bait is smiling now. He then comes down all stylish. After styling a bit, Bait asks, don't you think it's a bit too late for you? Raymond is then dragged and sees his reflection in his own blood. And then he starts laughing like the Joker. You again, Bait. It won't be different for you. He is then finished off by the big mouth. Only his little arm is left. But now the three-eyed, toothy-tongued one is staring at Bait. The monster prepares and bam, goes for it. But the guy is very calm. He takes a look and says no. Pulls the spear back. I'm not gonna die here. He gives it a cut that goes right through the middle of the big one, which falls stiff. He puts his hand on his face and says, the place I died wasn't here. Next chapter starts with a group of adventurers on top of a mountain. From afar at a volcano, it seems like many monsters are coming. The guy on the peak says, here they come. And indeed, they are all winged demons. However, among all of them, the Dragon King is there, known as Horned Tail. Someone with white hair says, looks like Quintaro's area has fallen as well. Now there's no one we can count on. The Zodiac Knights, the Silent Resistance, the Crusade, the Explorers, and even the 6 heroes all died. She says the guy there is the only one left. And guess who it is? Our bait slave, the last explorer, Elpin. The name of this world is Maple, and Maple backwards is Elpum. He then says to the group, let's go. This is our last adventure, and the big dragon is already coming. Sometime later, everything is desolate in flames. And Elpin is not in good health anymore. Friends are all dead. In front of him is a giant dragon's head. Looking up, he wonders, is this the end? Horntail is flying, and unfortunately, he has 3 heads, and the only one they cut is regenerating. Seeing this, Elpin thinks it was all for nothing, and the dragon flies towards him to end the suffering. Without being able to defend himself anymore, he just closes his eyes, thinking it's where it ends. The world and the adventure of everyone. Angry, he punches the ground, saying, "Don't mess with me." Is this how it ends? Already remembering Philip, Jaden, who went by Truckcun. Even our dear Elysis, who will be missed. Everyone sacrificed themselves. He shouts to the heavens, saying he refuses to accept this. He stands up and says, "Horntail, I won't end like this." Starts casting a spell on himself. Forms a fire arrow, but the conjuration fails because he has no energy left. He vomits blood, and from the skies, Horntail also casts a spell. But unfortunately, his doesn't fail and is about to blow poor Elpin up. Before dying, he says that the dragon is a pathetic bastard. The only thing left of him is his consciousness, wondering why it ended like this. If only he had more power or another chance. At that moment, he feels the waves of the sea. And when he opens his eyes, someone had actually thrown a bucket of water at him to wake him up. The guy says, "Are you pretending to be sick?" Lazy little bait slave, just trying to relax here. Elpin is confused. Hold on, what's happening all of a sudden? Where's Horntail? And how am I alive now? He starts looking around. Wait, this place. He hears some voices saying, "Oh, thank you for the slave. This one looks good." Then he remembers, is this a slave market? But it can't be. This place disappeared a long time ago. But looking around, the bald guy comes to talk to him again. "You stinky brat, the only thing that matters to you is your life." Elpin recognizes the bald guy. He's the merchant who used to take care of his group 6 years ago in the slave market. If that's the case, does that mean he's gone back to the past? At that moment, the guy punches him in the face, and our protagonist wonders, so have I gone back to the beginning of the whole story? After a few punches, he's thinking, am I dreaming now? But this seems too real just to be a memory. It's hard to believe, but there's no other explanation. At that moment, the auctioneer presented the 2 slaves to Walker and Raymond. Elpin then stopped thinking about why this happened. There's no need for me to complicate things. I've been given a second chance. Back in the dungeon after everything happened, he takes the staff that Walker was using. At least he can conjure the fire arrow ability, which isn't too bad. Since Walker was also a beginner adventurer, he can use the guy's low-level items. The only problem is that it's not enough. An explorer always brings more than just a weapon. He then sees a piece of a leg and remembers that some explorers hid things in their shoes. Cruelly, he goes there and pokes the guy's shoe, which had a ring. Upon equipping it, he realizes it's a psychokinesis ring. At that moment, he hears something coming. When he looks back, there are a bunch of those creatures, all because of the smell of blood, and they don't hesitate. It's a stomp on the ground, and they're already attacking. He throws a fireball, piercing the first one. Here comes the pesky tongue that breaks the spear he was using. He gets startled, and one is already behind him, biting his head. The fire arrow causes an explosion and pierces the creature. He decides to test the ring on the fire arrow he just sent. Throwing his hand to the side, he manages to redirect its movement, passing through everything. When the arrow dissolves, all that's left are the burned creatures on the ground. It's BBQ time. From what he realizes, the only problem is that the duration is still very short, but another wave of monsters is already coming. However, he's calm, saying that it doesn't matter, until he gets scared and has to dodge. The fire arrow isn't activating again. Apparently, the cooldown time is much longer than he expected. But the monsters are very persistent. They're already coming back to bite him before he hits the ground. However, he stops the movement and gives a smack to the mouth. He beats it up professor style with a ruler. It doesn't kill anymore, but it burns. He finishes with a kick and sends the creature flying. He then realizes that the staff's cooldown has reset, and he ignites the flame. The big-mouthed one comes. But now it's over. He throws it towards him, redirects with the ring, and pierces everything. Look at his style and the hole he made. While everything's burning there, someone shouts for him. The so-called Elizabeth, lying on the ground, says, "You weren't an ordinary bait slave." He looks and is surprised that she's alive. She asks, "How do you know how to fight with a spear? How do you know how to use magic? Who are you?" Elpin thinks that maybe she was lucky, or maybe, on the other hand, unlucky. The poor thing is they're desperate, wanting to know what's going on and how he got that staff, and how does he have that circle on his wrist? How does a slave like him have awakened powers? In this world, the circle around your wrist means you've awakened abilities and elements. Elizabeth asks lastly, "Are you behind all of this?" Staring down at her, cold and calculating. He just asks, "Are you finished talking?" She says, "What do you mean?" Elpam explains, "Sorry, but you got it wrong. I didn't plan for you guys to die to the monsters, but even if you hadn't died, I would have killed you all." Agonizing, she says it doesn't make sense what he means. He explains that he hates people like her who use humans as bait, and he kills her with the fire arrow. "Did you think I was going to save her just because she's a woman? No mercy." Outside, everyone is confused. How is this possible? Could a bait slave return alone? Elpam thinks the die has been cast, and now he has to race against time to change that future. In front of a giant building, he says the first thing to do is get rid of this slave mark. Inside the building, someone is asking, wait, a slave came back alive? The guy standing answers, yes, that's right, Mr. Evis. It seems the slave returned without any injuries. Mr. Evis says, okay, but what matters? It's not so unusual for a bait slave to come back without any injuries. The guy says, it's just that the entire group of that slave died inside the gate. At this point, Evis becomes serious. Now the case has become special. He came out of the gate alone and came here by himself. Normally, a bait slave tries to escape because even if he returns, nothing will change. Apparently, the fact that he didn't try to escape means he knows how difficult it is to escape from us. Since the only way to get rid of us is through death, this is the style of the Gaper merchants. But even so, Evis still asks, do you need to notify me of any insignificant case? The guy says there's one more detail: the slave had the first circle unlocked. Evis wonders if he spent a long time living as a slave, he probably doesn't like us. The guy in front of him then says he also asked for a change in the contract. Evis is curious. A change in the contract? The guy standing says yes, the slave wants to register as an explorer. Evis says, a slave wanting that? He doesn't know his place. However, the guy standing warns, these are orders from Lord Heiken. He wants you to confirm this. Evis is startled. Wait, Lord Heiken? Why would a high-ranking executive like him be interested in a slave? He looks at a book next to him and thinks, wait, it's not because of that, is it? The guy then leaves and he stands in front of the window thinking, a bait slave wanting to become an explorer? In the world of Maple, there's a certain abolition of slavery. Under the name of Empress Cygnus, the state of slavery does not exist, but that's just on the surface. Humans here have always been slaves of mesos, which is the currency of this world. If someone borrows mesos and can't pay, they need to settle the debt with labor. Such a simple concept created the state of slavery in the world of Maple. And on the day his father died of an illness, he became a slave too. Before his father died, he had bought a medicine called black moss, and the merchants at the trial adjusted his price to millions of mesos. At the trial, the judge told him, Elpan, since you're unable to pay 1,000,000 mesos that you borrowed from the merchants group, you will now have to pay off the debt with your labor. And that's how this place stole 6 years of his life. But now it's time to make them pay back. In the meeting, face to face with Evis, he introduces himself but already remembers the name. This guy is Evis, isn't he? Raken's left hand and one of the main merchants of the Gaper group. At least he has a good person to negotiate with. Evis asks, so you want to change the contract? I've already received the information, so let's get straight to the point. He bangs the mug on the table and says, I'll put you as an F-rank hunter and change the contract. Elpin thanks him, thinking he accepted it too easily. It seems he's being cautious. But Elpin says, however, I want an E-rank permission. Elpin thinks that in this life he won't follow this guy's plans. Evis is confused. E-rank? You don't even have any rank, and you want to go straight to E? Elpin says he has ventured through hundreds of gates since becoming a slave. But Evis replies, even with all that experience as bait, you don't have experience killing monsters. Elpin corrects him and asks, since when is hunting monsters a virtue of an explorer? The reason the first great explorer made his name was because he was known for surviving. The greatest virtue of an explorer is to return alive from an adventure, because the information an explorer brings back is much more important than the individual. Evis slams the table, agreeing with this sentiment. Surviving 3 years as a bait slave is no easy feat, but that's all he has. Not to mention, people only take slaves to easy gates. What chance does he think he has of surviving in a high-level gate? It's idiocy to give such a dangerous contract to someone to die without paying debts, but looking at Elpin, Evis is thinking, this kid doesn't know his place. It won't be long before he dies, but there's something strange. He then says there's a gate with 12 marks and a maximum entry of 5. That's right, a gate where 12 groups have already died. I don't want to see you prove yourself there. If you can show that you have such value, then I'll grant your request, already handing over the contract. The scene shifts directly to inside that dungeon. The group's captain talks to Elpin. So you're the rookie who's coming with us, right? Nice to meet you, I'm Shev. I'm the group's tanker. I heard through Evis that you're a bait slave, right? Neither I nor my comrades care about that, so you don't need to worry. Elpin just responds, I'm in your care. And the guys ask him, we heard that you can use fire magic, right? Elpin just says yes again. Shev says, I heard that mages can only use elements they're compatible with. The guy next to him asks, are you telling me that elements are predetermined? Shev says it's more or less like that. Any item that's not of the element the person uses is almost useless. Shev then explains, our mission here isn't to finish this gate, but to take the items from the other groups that have already died. We return the items to the merchants, the mission ends. They'll pay 3,000 mesos for each item. His friend gets angry, but damn, that's too little. Any item here would be worth more than 7,000 mesos. We're not even getting half. The knight behind him tells him to stop complaining, and they set off on an adventure to make some mesos. The place is a sinister forest. The boss then says, since the forest is dense, we'll have to spend a lot of time searching, so let's first make a base. They use a very large tree, since it'll be easy to escape from anything. And the guy with the scar tells Elpin, you can rest for now, the boss and I will take care of building the base. With the base built, they decide to scout the area in groups of 2. One group includes the girl, the scarred guy, and the knight, and the other includes Elpin and the boss. Walking through the forest, the boss says, "It's strange, no monsters, no items. Could we be too close to the entrance? Maybe we'll go deeper tomorrow," and asks Elpin what he thinks of his first mission. Elpin says he's nervous. The boss says that's normal, even he, who has experience, is still a coward and gets scared every time. But even though he's a coward, he tries to be brave because he trusts the people beside him. It's strange to say this, but all his comrades are good people. He says he was sad when he heard Elpin's story. Being a bait slave for so long must have been very difficult. If Elpin doesn't mind, he can join the group. Elpin stands still, looking at the ground without saying anything. The boss then tells him to forget it. He was talking nonsense. Let it go. Night falls and they are around the campfire. Apparently, no one encountered any monsters today. The boss says they'll leave it until tomorrow. For now, the important thing is to sleep and rest. Elpin drinks some water and nods off. In the middle of the night, the boss calls out to him. "Hey Pan, are you sleeping?" Elpin doesn't respond, fast asleep. At this moment, the scarred guy touches Chev's shoulder and says, "There's no way he's not sleeping now. Did you forget that we put a bunch of sleeping medicine in his food? That drops a creature weighing tons. Imagine him who drank so much." On top of him, already with the blade in hand, it's time to do the job. He pierces the sack and is startled because there's nothing there except for a twig and some stones. Everyone is confused and the boss orders to find him immediately. He must be nearby. But an explosion occurs at the base. At the top of a tree, Elpin is just watching. Up there, it's chaos and no one knows where this fire came from. Until the knight points, "Boss, what's that?" When they look, there's a giant slime with an eye in front. The boss understands what happened. Elpin, the damn guy, used us as bait. Too late, and the creature comes to take a bite, but everyone jumps. Following the group, Elpin thinks they were very foolish. Trying to deceive me by being so kind was the mistake. In a gate where 12 groups have already been eliminated, they'd accept and are happy to work with a former bait slave. This already showed that they had some other motive. Elpin thinks, "I already imagined that this was the boss of the place. I just didn't think he'd be this big." The boss's group is trying to escape desperately. He has already realized that they are at a complete disadvantage. The knight asks, "What the hell is this?" The boss says it's a gold slime. It's an extremely rare type of boss to encounter, but the problem is that it only appears in a red gate. Its body is completely made of acid, which is terrible for any kind of short-range explorer. And the most dangerous thing is that, at this moment, he squats. A jet of acid passes by them. The knight doesn't understand, wait, does it also use long-distance attacks? He begins to get desperate, saying that this is robbery, doesn't make sense. The whole group is running, trying to think of a plan to fight against it. The boss explains that its acid attack has a 1-minute cooldown, so this is their chance to get away. However, the scarred guy says that this is the perfect opportunity. If it's in cooldown time, just destroy the stone in the middle of its forehead. He turns around and goes towards the boss, saying that 1 minute is more than enough. The boss tells him to wait, but it's too late. He's been split in two, leaving the whole group confused. How did he use the acid shot again so soon? Wasn't there at least another 10 seconds? At that moment, the slime sends a barrage of acid shots. The boss and company seem to have turned into jelly. Only the hairy little skeletons remain. Elpin was watching from the side. He says that Chev wasn't wrong about the cooldown time of a gold slime. However, this creature also has a special effect that the more items it eats, the stronger it becomes. And since 12 groups have failed here, it's giant and almost out of cooldown time. This creature is much stronger than it usually is. Probably strong enough to go into a yellow gate. It's impossible for a first circle explorer to defeat something like this. Since the slime eats the items, there's no way to rescue anything. This mission is already a failure, but he remembers Eva saying, "Go and prove yourself." He then smiles. The slime seems to detect something and looks to the side, already receiving an arrow of fire to the head, and some slime remains falling to the ground. The boss was all twisted. From afar, Elpin thinks he resisted quite a bit, especially considering that he aimed right at the center. Seeing how much damage he caused, he imagines that 4 more will be enough. But none of this matters. He ties a rope around his waist that's connected to a knife. Now it's time for him to prove himself. The slime sends the acid barrage and he dodges to the side. The creature sends another. He throws his rope with the knife and activates telekinesis with the ring that sticks to the tree, and he pulls himself. He's very attack on Titan like this bastard. The acid barrage is coming at him with everything, destroying all the trees. And now he swings Tarzan style, goes to the side, already turning around, pulling out another fire arrow, and hits another one right in the center. But the slime also doesn't stop attacking. He almost takes one, climbs the tree, activates the power of the ring, and throws another arrow at him. He says that at this rate, at least 3 more. Keeps dodging Aaron Jaeger style. Spinning and already shoots another fire arrow, stops at the tree, and looks how cheeky. The slime had dodged, but he uses the ring to redirect the arrow and hits another one. Now the center is exposed, and the scoundrel goes to kill like Captain Levy, appearing in the middle of the smoke. It's the final blow. But the slime's hand is coming too. He's about to be crushed, so he looks back, activates telekinesis, throws the knife tied to the tree, and pulls himself to dodge. He falls on the slippery ground, another fire arrow towards the slime, which will block with its hand. but you already know what he does. He smiles, activates the ring, makes the arrows circulate under the hand, and hits another one in the core that destroys it. With that, the slime collapses and explodes everything. He runs away, acid everywhere. He grabs the little knife in his hand, throws it at the tree, activates telekinesis, and pulls himself. The entire forest being taken over by the slime river. Sometime later, when everything's settled down, he walks around and locates the slime's core. He pulls it to his hand, throws it up, and makes a red energy ball around it. And the scene goes to him talking to Evis. Talking, I'm back. Evis just stares. It looks like you're not just words, huh? But you came back alone again, and without any of the items we asked for. Elpham tells the truth. The members you put with me were beginner hunters and only wanted the items I had. So I separated from them to avoid any problems. And when I found them again, the boss had already killed them. Evis wants to know which boss. Elpham says it was a gold slime. And Evis knows what that means. Wait, if that was the monster, there are no items. Elpham says yes. All the items melted. Evis gets angry. Damn it. All the items we lent to those hunters have now disappeared. We lost a lot. Moreover, it's even worse that this guy escaped. This is because there are some rules in the gates. First, every gate has in front of it the maximum number of people who can enter. When that amount is already inside, no one else can enter, and the gate is deactivated until everyone has died. Second, there are restrictions on the gates depending on the difficulty and number of circles. If a person has more circles than the difficulty, they cannot enter. That's why, regardless of how strong someone is, they always run into danger. Third, each gate can only be cleared once, which makes everything even harder. If only one member returns alive, the gate disappears and can never be made again. And since Elpham came back, that one is a gate that is already gone. But maybe that's a good thing. Dealing with the gold slime would be difficult for any first circle hunter. Evis then tells him, only you survived, apparently. And since all the items melted, you can't deliver anything to me. So whatever the reason is, in the end you failed. Elpham tells him, you're judging too quickly. I haven't finished talking yet. Evis wants to know what he means by that. Elpham explains, the gold slime, I ate it. And our boy has 2 circles. This bastard. Evis is shocked, already understanding that he absorbed the gold slime. Elpham tells him, I think I proved myself, right? Now rank me as you promised. Evis says, rank D. Elpham is surprised. Evis comes in his face saying, come on, rank D. If you work with me, I'll still treat you as a rank C explorer. Contract signed without fear. Elpham thinks, normally treating someone who hasn't even reached the 3rd circle as rank C is too crazy. This is because the circle is power. The difference between 1 and 2 is huge. But Evis knows, climbing a circle just by consuming a monster core is something an ordinary person cannot do. Meanwhile, Evis is thinking, survival instinct? No way, he has a frightening talent. Someone who just reached the 1st circle is already in the 2nd in an instant. I've never seen anyone so fast. I need to have him now, all shiny. Elpham even lets out a little sigh. The way he treats me has changed much faster than I expected. But that's expected, since there's not much time until the opening of the first red gate of 100 people, a giant event that all guilds and merchant groups participate in. Naturally, the merchants of Gaper are very interested in this. But this is also perfect for me since I'm in a hurry, and speeding up my plans isn't a bad thing. He then tells Evis that he wants to ask for something. He asks him what? Just say it. Oh, you cheeky one, he says, asking me for some mesos. Elvis laughs, thinking, oh, this kid is asking me for money. Next chapter. Some say the gate opened the era of adventurers, but all this was actually a trap set by a black mage. Many explorers have lost their lives here, and the potential of the Maple world has gradually been destroyed. And in the end, the last day has come. Hundreds of monsters that were waiting for their chance came out of the gates, and then humanity was destroyed. This will happen exactly 3 years from now. The fate of this world is not so far away. Evis just watches Elpham leaving, and he's thinking it's not enough, but it will do to get things started. The gate for 100 people is red grade this time. Only people with 2 circles or below can enter. Normally, the merchant group would focus on hunters with more circles, but their investment in me is because they are concerned about this specific gate. Elpham thinks that maybe with these masters he should buy some weapons or items. The problem is that the items he really wants are much more expensive. The second most useful thing for an explorer is, so he heads to the slave house. The guy greets him happily, asking if he's an explorer and if he needs help choosing. As expected, all the nobles go there to buy slaves. Elpham refuses the help, saying he came for someone specific. Sometime later, they are walking in the punishment room. This is where the slaves who do not obey need to be put, like this one he's looking for. They stop and the guy says, oh, he's over there. The guy is tied up. Sweating nervously, Geseller looks at Elpham and says, hey, my dear customer, do you really want this guy? Elpham says, yes, that's him. It's him I'm looking for, who's already staring at the protagonist. Elpham says, before my return, there was a death that hastened the destruction of the world. The name Maple has 6 letters, and each letter represents a hero. And the heroine named Iran was murdered, her first and last disciple. The person who killed her and the one who declared the beginning of destruction. The hero killer, Devo. It all started because of him. Divo asks, are you here because of me? First time seeing you, Sir Scram. The seller says, sorry, my customer, 1,000 apologies. It's just that his mental state is shaken. Elpin thinks, I don't know what happened before my return. But for now, he's just a slave. Seeing how he's showing his attitude to an explorer, there's something else going on. You can't say he's just being rude. The seller says, he's a complete lunatic, he's a crazy dog. But Elpin thinks his personality doesn't matter. What he wants is this guy's ability. They were the ones who received the most attention when the last day began. Because of that, they were always compared. Mainly because they were from the same region, awakened at the same time, and both were skilled. But what they had most in common, Elpin asks, how much do you cost? Divo says to him, unlike your appearance, you must be rich, right? You have enough for the price I want? 1 million mesos. How about that? It should be fine for you, young master. Elpin thinks that the similarity between them is that they both need mesos. He needs mesos to help his sister who has the black blood disease. Divo says, get out if you don't have that money. But Elpin reaches into his pocket and pulls out a wad of money, 1 million mesos. The seller and Divo can't believe it. And Elpin explains to him, now listen carefully. The duration of the contract is 1 year, and the split will be 70 to 30. The priority of the obtained items is mine. The slave seller is confused. What is he doing? Is he making a contract with a slave? Elpin then hands the contract to Divo, who signs it immediately. You better not back out, he says, already bitten the finger and signed. Elpin knows that his lack of hesitation is because he needs to save his sister. And he says, contract made, we're going to the gate now. Excited, Divo says, leave it to me. Let's go. But Elpin warns him, you'll have to prove your worth, Divo, who says he'll be much better than anyone else he's found. Already at the dungeon's door, Divo is confused. Hey boss, so I thank you for a new weapon, but I like long swords. Let's go back soon and buy one. But Elpin tells him that from now on, working with him, he will only use polearm weapons. If Divo doesn't accept that, the contract is over. Divo doesn't say anything, he just wants to know, wait, is this going to be our test? It's a red gate with a mark of 8. Elpin says it's the right place, it's perfect. Divo says, okay, but where are the rest of our members? A rich guy like you must have others, right? Especially a healer, at least. I'm a combatant, so I need a healer. Elpin is just standing there staring at him. Divo says, hey, wait, you're not telling me we're going in without anyone, are you? Elpin says, don't worry, we have everyone we need. Divo responds, woo, thank goodness, you scared me for nothing, man. Here, pointing to him, who stays there bugged out, not understanding anything. Wait, no, this isn't what I'm thinking. Stop wasting time, take this kick in the butt, and go through the portal. Inside, Divo falls to the ground and then gets up cursing. You're insane. How are we two going to fight in a place made for 8? Even madness has to have a limit. Is this some kind of joke to you? Not to mention you gave me a weapon I don't even know how to use. Elpin is just looking at him when suddenly there's an explosion behind him and a bunch of tree stumps are coming. It's a monster called Stumps. And Divo realizes he messed up. The creatures are coming in a huge group because he was yelling as soon as he arrived. The problem is that, ironically, the cut trees are resistant to blade cuts. But Elpin passes by him, telling him to get out of the way. The creatures are coming, a fire arrow in the head of the first one is pierced. Before Divo understands anything, Elpin activates telekinesis and starts piercing everything. The tree stumps turn into firewood. He even scolds Divo, saying, pathetic, acting like that as soon as you enter the gate. I don't want to see another mistake like that. Poor Divo, he doesn't understand anything. The scene changes to a house under the moonlight and someone speaking. The merchant group fell into the trap. The time is already being marked and we will finish selecting the members we will use. How do you want us to proceed? The guy with the cup responds. Very well. The girl disappears and the guy with the good guy look says, everything has to be done as he wishes. Freedom to the maple world. Rotha, this guy is trying to stir things up, right? While in the dungeon, the tree stumps are all taking fire arrows. Divo says, I got the 27 stones. Elpin keeps going tirelessly. Divo is thinking, dang, I thought this guy was insane, but he wasn't joking. What was that? Psychokinesis? I've never even heard of someone using fire arrows like that. Wow, I'm such a skilled guy. It's going to make a fortune. Wow, this contract was good. Not to mention that the split will be 70 to 30. I'm going to get enough money for her treatment and also for a good life. Elpin says, I found it. Divo asks what? When he looks. It's a group of stompies and there are 9 of them. Elpin then says it's the perfect number. Divo, perfect for what? When he looks, Elpin is just staring. A pebble falls to the ground, catching the stompies' attention. When they look, Divo appears behind them, cutting the first one in half. As he fights, he thinks, this guy lost his mind. He wants me to fight all of this alone? Not to mention I'm not used to this weapon. I'm fighting all wrong. Not even with 10 lives would it be enough. Elpin is observing, thinking. He's still kind of sloppy since he only used a sword. But soon he'll realize that his specialty is polearm weapons. It's this type of weapon that will make him as strong as possible, and I have no doubt about his talent, since he was chosen to be the disciple of the heroine of polearm weapons. The big tree is coming at him and he passes by cutting. Divo begins to notice. Strange, the reach of this weapon is much longer and yet it has more power. Not to mention it feels more comfortable than a sword. Furthermore, since it only has the blade at the tip, it is much lighter. I don't even need to use much force. And if I try to use even less force, it just starts spinning, slicing, cutting through the tree stumps with no difficulty at all. Elpen realizes, apparently he was already learned. He hasn't even awakened the first circle yet, and he's already this strong. At this moment, an earthquake occurs. Divo looks up and the wall explodes. A huge trunk is coming out. He almost got caught and falls back. A regional boss appears. He was about to be crushed, but Elpem saves him just in time and throws him aside like trash. He looks at the boss and says, "Size isn't everything. It just makes you easier to hit, shooting a fire arrow at him." Divo becomes confident. Maybe with magic it's possible. However, the boss easily manages to defend himself. Elpem prepares another shot thinking, "This creature's reaction is much faster than I expected. How about this?" He sends an arrow, activates psychokinesis, and starts spinning it around the creature. Tries to get a blind spot on its back, but the monster manages to defend again with its branch. Now Elpem is scared. It blocked this too. Hippos start running. Not even magic works. Divo asks, "Your attacks aren't working. What are we going to do?" Elpem thinks, "It's not that my attacks aren't working. If he's blocking, it means they work. The problem is that he has too many branches." The creature hits the ground, and both of them are thrown. In mid-air, the monster comes to hit Divo, but Elpen activates telekinesis and pulls a piece of stone, which passes under its foot and carries them away. Saved barely. "Man, I almost died." Elpen replies, "Take care of the small ones and I'll kill the boss." Before Divo can respond, Elpen has already gone, shooting fire arrows while Divo thinks. He's sick. It's not something you can kill without a plan. He has to flee. An explosion occurs and he thinks, "See, just as I imagined." However, in the middle of the smoke, another fire arrow passes, but this time, right in the Stompy's eye. Divo is puzzled. Wait, he managed to blind the creature. Elpen prepares another arrow and sends it. He knows the branches are much faster than he can handle, and with just psychokinesis, it's not enough. However, with 2 circles, he can use 2 arrows now, and then it's just a matter of distracting with one and passing through with the other, already tearing off another arm. Instead of focusing on his fight, Divo can't stop watching Elpem. He realizes that his plan is simple but very effective. With 2 arrows changing direction, not even with this amount of branches can the creature escape. However, he gets a shock when he sees that the creatures he should be killing are heading towards Elpen. He yells at Elpen to be careful and changes the direction of the arrows, killing all the creatures. He turns around and says, "Divo, can't you even take care of the small ones? Take this scolding." But at that moment he is almost crushed, but changes direction with the stone. The problem now is that he's in the air and there's a whip coming right at his face. But now it's Divo's turn to save him with a cut, throwing him aside. Who returns the scolding saying, "I saved you just now, so we're even." Do you remember that the last chapter ended with a fight between him and Divo against the boss Stomps, the big wooden creature? Divo had just saved him and said that the debt was paid. Elpem started casting his spell, commenting that Divo was getting used to fighting with the axe. He fired some flaming arrows at the boss, who tried to defend himself but got his trunk torn. He sent another one from behind and the boss tried to defend again, but Divo interrupted Stomp's defense and cut his arm, allowing the arrow to pass through and tear off another part. Elpem saw it was the perfect chance, but Divo was being attacked from both sides. He said he'd handle the right side and Divo took care of the left. Unstoppable, he jumped onto the trunk and started climbing the tree. He unleashed a flurry of cuts and his axe was incredibly fast. However, he got hit on the back, the boy spat some red paint, and now the Stomp was about to bite him. But here came a flying stone that saved him before the fall. However, the boss broke the stone. Again, Elpem sent another stone and Divo got on top of it. Elpem realized that Divo was causing more trouble than helping. He sent more floating stones for him to climb, but as soon as he was on top, the boss attacked again, and he saw it was never going to end. He jumped from one platform to another, all in the air, supported by Elpem, while the flaming arrow danced above the boss. He finally found a blind spot on the side of the boss, and Elpem said that was his chance to finish it. He struck right in the middle of the monster's eye, which agonized as he was stuck and started spinning. Divo had to let go of the weapon and was thrown against the wall. He was exhausted but hadn't given up and jumped toward the boss, saying it wasn't over. Elpem created a mana link between his hand and Divo's axe. With a swing of his arm, the axe left the eye and flew towards Divo, who grabbed it and said it was time for dessert, striking the boss's other eye. With both eyes cut, Divo was thrown to the ground again. Strangely, the blind boss was still attacking, but now he couldn't defend himself, so 2 flaming arrows passed and went straight into his mouth, causing an explosion inside the mana core and setting him on fire from the inside out. Elpem approached and told Divo it was a good job. He just looked at our protagonist all proud and said he did a good job too, while they both watched the giant monster burn. That same night, elsewhere, a girl was waiting for someone to have dinner with, but it was already late, so she decided to eat and go to bed. She prayed thanking for the food until she heard a noise on the door. When she went to see who it was, she was startled. It was her big brother, Divo. As she trembled, he said he was back. She cried and hugged him, welcoming him back home. How cute siblings are. Meanwhile, in an isolated cabin, Elpham approached a bed where there was a decomposing arm. He observed calmly in the photo you could see it was him and his father, who was now just a corpse. Elpham showed no reaction. He activated his staff and left with the house in flames. The next day in his office, Evis was looking at papers thinking he had a big problem. The day of the subjugation of 100 people was approaching and they didn't know who to send. A certain Lord Rakan was the person in command and he knew he was in trouble if he made a mistake. It was a gigantic event where the 10 merchant groups would be paying attention, especially because in a gate of 100 people, it is guaranteed that something legendary or epic will appear. But while putting out his cigar, he knew it was going to be very difficult. Boy, the Nadish's sisters from the Eastern Union and the warriors have a lot of combat power. Be careful because they cause war and things. He knew they had unparalleled battle power for second circle people. Comparing them to the two circle merchants from Gapur was almost embarrassing. Besides, the soldiers that would be sent by the other merchant groups were also very dangerous. The Gapur are basically the trash of it. Looking at Elpham's file, he says he is uncertain about it. Suddenly, someone opens the door without knocking, startling him. As soon as he sees who it is, he gets up in shock while the man enters the room. It's Lord Rakan, who asks how the composition of the members is going. Standing up, Evis tries to apologize, but Rakan says it looks like he's slow as always. Rakan asks about Elpham, and Evis responds that he's unsure since a lot of people died when they went in with him, so it's dangerous to send this boy. Rakan says if that's the case, they can confirm it once more. There is a certain very good place that would be perfect, especially if they send him with the entire group that will participate. This time, there would be many witnesses to see what this kid is doing. Following this, Elpham and Divo are in front of a portal, and Divo is excited about having so many people this time. Someone approaches Elpham and asks if they are the fifth group. The people don't seem very happy because they know they are former slaves. And the artwork of this story is insane, making every character look unique. Observing the surroundings, Elpham realizes that no one there seems to approve of their presence. However, this is normal for a more experienced group since a slave usually doesn't help. Seeing the two circles and the bandages, he knows these guys have been working hard to at least have this power. Everyone there is completely different from the Shiu's group of slaves. No one there needs a slave to function as bait. Evis approaches and calls everyone's attention. He announces that this is a test to see who deserves the opportunity and has sufficient skills. The guy with the red bandana asks what the opportunity is for, and he replies that it's the opportunity to participate in the invasion of the 100-person gate. The people are shocked, and Elpham already expected this. It's a gate where 40 people can enter. In a flash of red light, they find themselves inside. Again, it's a forest. The guy with the red bandana looks at the mage and says it's good they cooperate only when facing the boss. There are 4 groups considering that Elpham and Divo are one. They will separate and regroup after the signal. Our boys were left alone. The mage named Dolan tells the group to move quickly, but he soon notices something coming from the bushes. It's a kind of mushroom with spider legs. Dolan says it's a waste of time to cast a lightning spell. The thunder explodes the creature, and he says it's ridiculous. They just need to grab these energy stones and leave. However, when the smoke clears, the creature survived. Dolan is startled, seeing that it is resistant to magic, and tells the group they will have to deal with it. Suddenly, something stirs in the bushes. He warns them to be careful, but out of nowhere, his group is completely surrounded. After fights, cuts, and spells, the giant mushrooms falls to the ground. Everyone is exhausted. They finally won. The girl with the red bandana asks Dolan what they will do, as these creatures are much stronger than they expected. Dolan agrees and says if they continue at this pace, they will be exhausted before the boss. So they will end the truce and kill the boss alone. This is what Elpham had just explained to Divo that everyone would do. Divo, exhausted, asks why he explains so much and does so little. However, Divo understands it's time for them to move on. Divo shouts that they will kill the boss, and Elpham says they will kill all the creatures. Divo is confused. Elpham had just explained that people will steal the boss, but Elpham says that's exactly why they will kill all the mobs. Besides, the ability to hunt mobs is also important for a hunter. Moreover, a 40-person fight against a boss is dangerous because you never know when someone will stab you in the back. Dolan's group was passing through another part of the forest. The girl with the red bandana pointed for him to look at something. It was an escape gate that he says to mark. Suddenly, a guy behind Dolan starts laughing and screaming like a madman, and he asks what's going on. The guy is losing his mind, and Dolan approaches, putting a hand on his shoulder, telling him to stop making those sounds or he will attract the creatures. However, when the guy turns around, you can see his mental state is shaken. The area has been engulfed by a purple mist. Dolan recognizes it as poisonous mist and knows they need to get out of there. He runs towards the teleport platform, but from behind him emerges a giant monster mushroom. The monster spews a purple mist at him. He stares in horror as the creature opens its mouth. Meanwhile, in front of a waterfall, Divo is amazed that Elpham hasn't done anything other than watch him fight so far. Suddenly, he sees something. In the sky, a red light shines, signaling the boss. Both of them head towards the group, impressed that they actually called. Upon arriving, Elpum notices a group is missing, and everyone is staring at them, especially thick one on the left with purple hair. The guy with the bandana says he will explain how things will happen, but the girl with purple hair asks about Dalin's group. The guy says they don't have to wait for them. They found the monster boss of that place, and Dalin's group has already been annihilated. The boss is the enraged poisonous mushroom. The girl is shocked to hear this name. Everyone knows it's impossible to defeat this boss because it's hard to get close. They start talking about leaving this place. Devo asks Elpum if this creature is that dangerous. Elpum knows this is one of the toughest bosses to deal with at their level. While clearly ignoring Devo, he begins to think of a strategy to handle a creature you can't get close to but is extremely fast. The guy with the bandana announces that the boss is right at the exit portal, so there's no way to escape. Devo says they should relax, to just one flaming arrow from Elpum will solve it. But Elpum tells him to shut up. He's angry, but Elpum says they'll die at this rate. A flaming arrow won't even scratch this mushroom. It's evident from the resistance of the normal monsters in this gate, but the guy with the bandana says he's talking nonsense while everyone tells him to start thinking of a plan quickly. Suddenly, Elpum raises his hand and says 50,000 mesos. The guy asks what he means, and Elpum explains that he charges 50,000 to be the bait for each person there, so it will be a total of 1.5 million, and the two of them will serve as bait for the boss. Everyone falls silent. Devo starts shouting about what kind of nonsense he's talking about, but the guy with the bandana tells him to shut up, saying to stop acting like a slave because that kind of strategy doesn't work in this place. If they follow a slave bait strategy, everyone in that gate will be annihilated. Pointing at Devo, he says it's even worse because this guy hasn't even awakened. What are they going to do with a slave and a second circle person? Devo is starting to get annoyed with this guy who always wants to provoke them. Elpum tells him to explain his plan then, since he sounded the signal, he must have thought of something. Besides, their group has a second circle and a first circle. It's then that Devo realizes he has awakened his powers and gets excited, saying he always knew he was a genius. Elpum retorts, saying that the guy's group only has a few second circles, so it's not that different. Suddenly, the purple-haired girl calls him, saying she'd be willing to pay that price for him to be the bait, but she doesn't have that money for everyone. Elpum says it's okay. He'll take the money when everyone gets out, and if he can't, he'll be a sacrifice, and no one pays anything. His condition is that everyone has to agree to this. He says they better make the decision soon. Meanwhile, the teleport area is engulfed in the mushroom's poison, devouring the entire group greedily. Suddenly, it senses something and a flaming arrow is fired at it, hitting it squarely in the head. The smoke covers the creature and was Elpum and Devo with their faces covered. The mushroom just looks at them and leaps forward. Elpum warns that it has started and Devo is scared by the boss's speed. It easily destroys the entire forest, running towards them. The girl in the group tells everyone to run to the portal and activate it before they die. The first guy reaches the portal, touches the activator, and it opens for everyone to escape, while Devo and Elpum are almost caught. The problem is that several mobs appear in front of Devo. Now awakened, he feels confident. His axe fills with golden mana, and he easily cuts them in half. However, he gets distracted and is about to be bitten by the boss. A flaming arrow saves him. The mushroom is all beaten up and takes another flaming arrow but dodges when it descends. Elpum, being cunning, activates telekinesis. The arrow curves and heads straight for the monster's back. The damn thing is so fast that no matter how many movements they make, the boss keeps dodging and advancing toward them. Devo warns that he'll be caught at this rate. Elpum says there will be a hole ahead and tells them both to jump. The mushroom merely grabs them. Devo turns and gives a thumbs up, calling it a sucker. Meanwhile, Elpum prepares and shoots an arrow that explodes the mountain above. Both fall into the water and are carried away by the current. A little later, they are getting out of the water. Devo is exhausted, saying he almost died. He asks Elpum what the hell that was. Elpum says obviously it's the boss of that place and they need to prepare much more to hunt it. Devo hesitates for a second. He smiles, asking if they are really going to hunt the monster alone. Elpum says he heard correctly. Devo is incredulous, thinking it's impossible. Elpum says they are in the hunting gate to hunt. What's the problem? Devo suggests making a strategic retreat, saying their job as bait is done and the flaming arrows don't work on that creature. Elpum said it was impossible for them to kill it, but explains that the circumstances have changed now that no one else is there. The extra money was just the cherry on top. He asks Devo what's the problem, as he's thinking of breaking the contract. Devo thinks about saying something but doesn't. He says it's not that, but Elpum better pay well for this. Elpum agrees and Devo asks him to explain the plan. He doesn't want to break the contract, but he also doesn't want to risk his life for something that is impossible to win. Does he really have a plan to win? Meanwhile, people are starting to exit the gate and Evis wonders if it wasn't too fast. He questions the girl about what happened and she says the subjugation failed. Dalin's group was annihilated and Elpum's group is still inside. They managed to escape because Elpum acted as bait. The boss there was impossible for them to defeat. Evis is angry and asks if they really fooled without doing anything. She explains that the boss was an enraged poisonous mushroom and there was nothing they could do. Hearing this, Evis turns and says they are leaving. She points out that the gate is still active, meaning Elpum's group is alive. There's no reason to wait, especially since if what she said is true, it's impossible for them to defeat that boss. If they want to wait, they can stay there because they have a lot to resolve. He thinks they are just a bunch of useless idiots. It's really hard for someone in the second circle to defeat that boss, but what he's looking for is not ordinary people. As the boss appears in the forest, Evis says he wants someone who can defeat that. From the top of a cliff, Elpum prepares a flaming arrow. He is the one who can make the impossible happen and announces that it's time for the hunt to begin. He fires the arrow that cuts through the skies. He knows this monster is much faster and more resilient than the others they have faced. The only way to cause any damage is by creating a lot of distance. He can't make an arrow strong enough right now, but with enough distance he can add psychic energy to the arrow to make it spin. This dramatically increases its ability to penetrate anything. It's an ability that mixes the concepts of a bow, a flaming arrow, and a bullet, which he named Revolver. Seeing that shot coming makes the boss scared, and it hits straight in his chest. He screams in agony as the rotational power makes it pierce through him. From a distance, Elpum saw everything. The boss was pierced along with all the trees behind him. The plan was for the ability to pierce through the head and kill him in one shot, but because it's very difficult to control, he missed by a little. The boss screams to the skies and runs towards Elpum, who is preparing another shot, but this one misses. Elpum knows that as powerful as this ability is, it's very difficult to control. He fires another one while thinking he needs to kill this beast before it climbs up. Nearby, Devo hides behind a rock. The boss jumps towards him, and at that moment, Elpum shouts for Devo. He grabs a rope and pulls it. The boss ends up tripping and falling into the water. From the top of the mountain, Elpum stares down at him. The holes where the boss's poison comes out are mostly covered. Suddenly, Devo's axe, tied with a rope, is about to hit him. The attack hits him square in the face. From afar, Devo pulls it like a whip. Seeing the boss unable to use poison, he says they can breathe now and asks the boss if he wants to enjoy the fresh air. The monster seems agitated and Elpum wonders if this will be enough to kill it. The base of the strategy was to bring it to the swamp to neutralize part of its poison. The boss tries to use poison again but can't. Devo asks him what's wrong. He spins the rope with the axe and sends it again with the ability activated, hitting squarely. The mushroom manages to defend with its hand but not without being hurt. Devo sends a series of attacks. Seeing it was about to be finished, the monster tries to advance towards them. The reason for bringing it to the swamp was because it's the perfect place to take down someone who relies on speed. Stuck in the ground, Elpum sends another revolver hitting squarely. The beast defends with its arms, but the rotation causes an explosion. Devo wonders if it died, but through the smoke, the creature is still standing. Elpum shouts for him to attack the energy core inside its head. Devo sends the axe to finish the boss, but it grabs the axe just as it was about to hit. Devo is shocked and the monster pulls him with the rope. Elpum activates a telekinesis ability and moves a log he had prepared in case this happened. The log hits the boss squarely and Devo grabs on to escape. The mushroom tries to remove something from its back, looking for Devo, who is already on its back, kicking its head. He uses the impact to gain distance again, now recovering the axe. He jumps between the logs and rocks while the boss can't move with its legs stuck. Elpum once again uses telekinesis to throw mud from the swamp on it. The monster raises its arm to defend, but Devo takes advantage and attacks from behind with a blade. The mushroom sends an attack in his direction, but it was an illusion, and he is already behind, coming straight for the neck. With that, he slices the monster's head off. It falls to the ground like a piece of trash, but the body is still standing. Elpum, up top, sees it, gives a thumbs up and smiles, but then is startled. The headless mushroom is right behind him, and it smacks his skull to the ground. He drops the axe immediately, and the beast lets out a scream upwards. Elpum doesn't know how, maybe it came from the head on the ground. Elpum had no idea the creature could move without a head. He fires another revolver, but when the smoke clears, nothing is there. The monster is now also jumping between the rocks and branches to get closer. While using telekinesis, Elpum thinks something is wrong with it. He begins to lift the beast so it can't jump again, but it takes advantage and throws itself toward the mountain, starting to climb towards Elpum. Because of the recharge time, he can only use one flaming arrow before getting hit. Suddenly, Devo starts to get up, saying that monster is getting on his nerves. He uses his explosive slash ability and throws the spinning axe towards the boss that was climbing. The attack hits the monster's legs and the Gotoku fall into the river. Devo smiles, saying now that creature will stop, but the monster continues climbing the mountain. However, at the top, Elpum is preparing another revolver. The monster dodges at the last moment, and from inside, the creature smiles, jumping towards him. At that moment, it gets startled when Elpum says it's the real head, apparently. The last shot was actually a flare. Even Devo fell for this bluff, and now Elpum activates his staff one last time and hits the boss squarely with a revolver. The attack hits the monster's center and tears through it, causing an explosion below. However, upon dying, it releases a cloud of smoke over the entire forest. Devo sees it and thinks this bastard is annoying even in death, but a telekinetic rope pulls him. He falls next to Elpum, saying he thought he was going to die. The The poison is spreading through the forest, and Devo asks if at least the creature is dead for good. Elpham confirms and says Devo did a good job. While he was saying it's time to collect the magic stone, something approaches. He gets startled as the boss is on top of them again. Inside, a core is visible, not completely destroyed. It glows in the sky and uses poison on both of them. Devo is incredulous, but the creature is still alive. Meanwhile, in Eva's office, Raycan is laughing at his face for having returned, saying it looks like he never changes. Evis apologizes and says it's better to leave it to the Knights of Cygnus. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Evis turns and says not to enter because they are in a meeting, but the person just opens it and says they are coming in regardless. Evis frowns. It is Elpham, saying he is back. This obviously makes Raycan smile, saying this is interesting. He asks Evis if he has seen someone come back from the dead. Then he introduces himself to Elpham, saying it's incredible his ability to survive, the kind of talent needed in the merchant group of Gaypor. Elpham just thanks him. Raycan then says he wants to ask him something. Will you be able to use these survival skills in the 100-person gate? Elpham looks at them and says it would be very difficult. This makes Raycan fall silent for a second. Suddenly, Evis yells at him, telling him to show respect to Raycan. They turned him into an adventurer, so he should be choosing tasks. It's good not to forget he still has a debt to them. However, Raycan just smiled, saying he said it would be difficult, not impossible. He doesn't like wasting time, so he will change the question. What does he want? In the next scene, Devo spits out his beer and says 5 million per person is crazy. This means they will earn 10 million for just the two of them. The problem is he drooled all over Elpham, who just stares at him. Devo says it's crazy, this event is too important, and if they ask for that much, it will be refused. Elpham says that's not his concern, the guys will have to make that decision. While Devo says he is very bold to talk like that to Evis, someone approaches from behind. Devo looks back while the person says they are very comfortable. It's the guy with the bandana saying everyone feels like trash being compared to them. Devo tells him he should be grateful and has been annoying long enough. It's good he leaves now for a fight, but they suddenly bow and apologize. The guy says he doubted their abilities because of prejudices, but he came here to show sincere apologies. He hands over a bag of gold that should have 1.5 million, but it has even more as extra gratitude. But Elpham suddenly says he only wants the 1.5 million. He worked with a contract he made. It's good for him to keep the rest of the money and those thanks. All he's saying is he doesn't want to mix things up. Devo says to leave it and he counts money very well. Elpham then asks if he is known as Pirate and Boro, and if he also does the job when paid. Meanwhile, Evis is yelling that they can't. He tells Raycan that they only pay 10 million if the person is third or fourth circle. No matter how good Elpham is, it's too much money to pay someone like that. He probably suggested that price just to make an offer. It's better to call him and adjust the price. Raycan asks if that would really be the case. He thinks if they call him again, he will double the price. He hands over a paper and tells him to read it. He says they will only take Elpham's group for the 100-person subjugation. Evis is shocked, wondering if it is true. He yells at Raycan, saying it is impossible. Raycan says it would be a problem if it weren't true. However, he paid a lot of money for that information directly from Lord Ninja Jin. He warns Evis to be careful, because the war has already started. Sometime later, in front of the enormous 100-person gate, people have already set up several camps at the entrance. Suddenly, someone sees someone approaching. It is Elpham and Devo, with Devo saying he can't believe the guy is really going to pay all that. On Elpham's chest, the symbol of the Gaypor merchants is visible and everyone is staring at them. Devo says it seems like the atmosphere is always the same at the gate entrances. Suddenly, a guy approaches, asking if they are from Gaypor and introduces himself as Shaodan, an E-rank explorer. Elpham simply responds that he is a C-rank explorer. The guy says it doesn't make sense because only second circle explorers can enter. Suddenly, someone tells him to step aside. Thank you, my lord. Finally, the artist could draw what they have been perfecting for centuries. She says she has an appointment with the guy there. Oh boy. The guy glares, saying it is a waste of time, while Elpham remembers something. Evis says to just obey and stop questioning so much. The Gaypor merchants will work with the Signos Knights at this gate. They are the most powerful military group serving Empress Signos, considered the symbol of public order, and have shown interest in this gate's subjugation. Evis says this way they improve relations with this group of knights and increase the chances of success at the gate. He doesn't know why the guys insisted so much, but it's good to cooperate with them. Elpham says it's fine, it won't be difficult, but Evis warns him to be careful because these people are a bit odd. The blonde introduces herself as Kari, the leader of the Signos Knights in training, and says it's best not to think about challenging her authority at any time. She doesn't like wasting time, so he should be very obedient and not cause any trouble. Devo obviously didn't like this introduction. She asks if they are the only members, and he says yes. She lowers her head, saying it seems they have given up on the gate. Meanwhile, the groups from Diggy and Mardia merchants arrive. Devo recognizes them as the elite from that place. Suddenly, a clack of clogs is heard. It's the Natisha sisters, the three of them welcome. I will just add some extra words so they say more time in the screen for no particular reason. Kiri says those three are very arrogant. We went from 0 to 4, how beautiful. A redhead then says everyone is here and introduces himself as Hankyu, the person who will assist them in their return. He says he knows they must have heard from their groups, but he will explain something before they enter. The legendary items they receive inside won't be their property but will belong to the groups they are part of. They will get a portion of the value later. At least they can keep the Men of Stone, so they should be happy with that. He warns that if he catches anyone trying to steal an item, the B-rank adventurers group there will deal with them immediately. Divo is shocked to see the guy has 5 circles on his arm. Not only him, but everyone there. The guy says the announcement is over, and they should prepare to enter the gate. Kiri tells Elpham it's best to follow her because she will be in charge here. They'll be the ones to win this. Divo is asking what's with this girl, and if they really will follow her. However, Elpham is just excited. All the work he has done so far was to participate in this, an opportunity he never had in his past life, but now he needs to make the most of it. Since everything is about to begin there, Elpham tells him to hurry up and Divo starts cursing him. The first thing to be shown is the result of this gate. All 6 merchant groups were annihilated inside and the subjugation failed. As soon as they cross the portal, they find themselves in an open field. Divo is amazed that even the grass is gigantic. Carrie tells him to stop looking around and move on. Divo wonders if they really have to follow this knight, but when he looks back, Elpham is lying on the ground. Divo asks what he is doing, but it's clear he is listening to the ground. From afar, something is coming, and the chumby guy asks what that sound is. It's a herd of pigs. They realize there must be at least 1,000 of them. Kiri orders everyone to separate as more groups are coming in, so they need to draw attention. The group listens to the order and starts to scatter, each one calling their group in different directions. Kiri's group is being chased, and she tells them to run to the forest and hunt them there. But the guy next to her says they have a problem. They have already lost sight of the Gaper merchant group. In another nearby area, Elpham and Divo are calmly together. Divo asks how he knew the pigs were coming. Elpham explains that in vast open areas it is normal for monsters to move in herds. That pig is a 2-meter-tall monster. It's not very strong, but the problem is that their groups usually have more than 1,000 members. Elpham knows the other hunters will also handle it calmly, and he needs to conserve energy. You never know what exists inside a 100-person gate. He remembers well a 100-person gate from his past life, where all the 100 adventurers who participated died. Divo asks what he is thinking about, but suddenly he steps on a rope. He gets startled and a wooden structure almost catches him if Elpham didn't save him. He is confused, wondering why there was a trap there. Who would do such a thing? In another part, a guy cuts a rope and a log comes at his back. He easily slices it in half and says it's pathetic. Someone appears and tells him not to let his guard down. He recognizes it as Kroko's group, saying that although the traps seem simple, they are extremely lethal. With this level of intelligence is probably a monster called Hob, a type of goblin, but much smarter. The guy says this gate will be very difficult. Without an explorer of his caliber, everyone would die there. He says he knows what to do to fare well in this place, so everyone should follow him. Suddenly, something falls on his back, and he asks what it was. It was the head of a guy who was decapitated by something. A red slash is moving and killing everyone. Krokos doesn't know what it is when another explorer slashes through him too. A white-haired assassin says he is an idiot for thinking he knows everything. Meanwhile, in another place, a guy sitting on a rock says the appearance of these pigs is perfect. But when he stands up, he says it's very boring. The 3 sisters are behind him, and he says it looks like he will have to start. They are standing there with trembling hands. He approaches and says it's useless to move for this kind of magic, at least for 30 minutes. One of the sisters asks why he is doing this, and he is impressed she can still speak. He explodes her belly, saying she seems very dangerous. The other sisters are desperate and start crying. He crouches down, saying it's difficult to explain why he is doing this. But suddenly, he has an idea. Activating his staff, he says it will be easier to explain like this. It's all for the Black Mage, and he fires a flaming arrow at them. Both are indeed exploded and fall to the ground. My friend, we only had 4 in the story, you killed 3, and now it's just Kiri left. Need to call Elpham for this guy. Otherwise, soon only men will be left in this world. Far away, another trap is triggered, and he says it never ends. He wanted to rest, but it won't be possible. He remembers a meeting he had with a white-haired guy. The guy says they have been preparing for this day for decades. They have planted roots and gained much power and influence, and now it is time to reap the rewards. William responded that he would not disappoint him. The man handed him a feather, saying it would be a gift to bless him, but failure would not be tolerated. It was around his neck as he thought he couldn't mess up this time. It seemed he would have to try a bit harder this time. Meanwhile, in the Goblin village, they are all gathered, defending the place. Nearby, Elpham and Divo are observing the area. Divo is scared, saying those creatures look very smart. He asks Elpham if they are all bosses. Elpham explains they are not. There's only one boss there. The problem is that besides being many, they are very strong and have a lot of health. Not to mention they have taken various items from the explorers, and some can even activate abilities. Divo says it's just a group of many green explorers. Elpham says he learns quickly. That's exactly right. But now they need to think of a solution with just the 2 of them. Some goblins are patrolling and sense something. Suddenly, Divo comes from behind and tries to strike with his axe, but the goblin ducks. Devo thinks this is revenge from Elpem for him bad-mouthing that blonde. The goblin comes to punch him, but Devo plants the axe in the ground and swings to the goblin's back. He falls behind, but the goblin comes at him again. He has to dodge again and again, nearly getting punched in the chest. He manages to land a blow with the wooden part of his hammer, making the goblin quiet for a moment. He slices the goblin's leg, making it fall. He activates his golden aura and goes for the back to finish it, but the creature escapes once more. Devo faces the creature, preparing for another punch. He gets hit in the face, slamming into a tree, thankful he blocked it. He realizes this won't be an easy fight. The goblin charges again and punches the tree in half, but Devo dodges and finds an opening to sever its arm. However, the monster grabs his head and slams him to the ground. Devo wraps his legs around the goblin's arm and immobilizes it using an axe. The goblin throws him aside and Devo charges again, power activated, while the goblin goes for another punch. Sometime later, the goblin falls to the ground, bleeding. Devo says he can't believe Elpem didn't help again. Elpem says he seemed fine and must feel more confident now. Devo was about to say he wasn't more confident when he got startled by what he saw. There were many dead adventurers nearby, knights from Signos, and they had no idea what happened. Someone nearby was in agony. They approached the only survivor. Elpem asked if they were defeated by the goblins. The man said that wasn't the case. Meanwhile, Evis was sitting in his chair, thinking it didn't make sense. Some explorers enter the gate just to take advantage of the fact that no one knows what happens inside and rob everyone else. It's perfect since the gate disappears without evidence. But in this gate's case, it doesn't make sense since you would be searched upon exit and they would see you took all the items. Maybe people went there just to eliminate the best hunters from each group. It seemed unlikely since that person would be hunted by all the others. He wonders if there is someone behind all this. Devo can't believe what happened and says it wasn't Kiri around there. The knight hits the ground saying it's all his fault and he didn't know there was an enemy hidden among them. He says it was Kiri who did all this to them. Elpem doesn't understand why the woman who trains the Sigma's knights would do this against them. The man says it's hard for him to believe too. Now he knows why she gave a certain order before entering the gate. Before things got like this, Kiri herself said she was a follower of the Black Mages. Devo knew little about the Black Mages, a group that threatened the continent 800 years ago with their followers. 6 heroes fought the Black Mage, but everything changed when they were all sealed together. The Allied forces managed to mount a strong counterattack once everything went into chaos, leading to the total extinction of the Black Mage's followers. Devo thinks this is impossible. Elpem says they will have to find this woman first. He asks the man if he wants to go with them, but warns he must be determined to face her as soon as they find her. The man says that is exactly what he wants. In another part, Kira is fleeing but runs into William, who says he has been waiting for her. He is alongside the assassin who killed the others. William says the order she gave for everyone to split up greatly helped his plans and asks what she thinks of the gift he sent. Kiri points her sword at them and asks who they are. Devo is helping the knight and informs him that Elpem went ahead to find the woman. He draws a blade with a purple mist and says this is great news. In another part of the field, Kiri is fighting William's assassin, with 4 others joining the fight. William is impressed she is surviving, but knows it won't last long. Suddenly, she retreats and activates a skill called Sunrise. Another girl comes over, asking why she is striking poses. She easily defends and finds an opening to slice her in half. She is getting tired though. She tells them to reveal their purpose if they don't want to die. William says she is too noisy and orders them to finish her off. The 3 others lunge at her, but something stealthy cuts through them, leaving them in pieces. William is startled and Kiri is in disbelief. There was Devo, looking badass. Moments earlier, when he was saving the guy that felt relieved when Elpem wasn't around and drew his blade, aiming for the neck. But he got hit by a fire spell, making his entire arm disappear. He fell, asking what happened. Elpem was right next to him, confused to go ask what was going on. Elpem said the man didn't exceed his expectations. His anxiety made him act impulsively on the first chance. Elpem got closer and apologized, saying he trusts no one. Back in the fight, William finds it strange, wondering why someone uninvited would appear. The girl beside him says he belongs to Gepor. If he is there, it means. The man realizes the knight failed his mission. He acknowledges both seem skilled and decides they have no choice but to send their elite. Kiri shouts for him to be careful because those guys are. Devo interrupts, calling them a bunch of perverts. William says it's time to end this and sends everyone in. Devo asks Kiri if she can handle at least one, and she tells him not to underestimate her. Suddenly, a man emerges from the smoke and almost hits him. The man stops beside him. Devo is ready to finish him, but is almost hit by a flaming arrow, canceling the attack. Another attacker appears from behind. Devo is struck in the shoulder as the guy jumps, barely leaving a scratch on his back. The attacker says it's time to put him to sleep. As the blade hits the ground, Devo is already behind, saying he was just playing around, and slices the man in half. Another with a spear comes to kill him, but he dodges and hits the spear's blade. The man is pushed back, shocked by Devo's strength. Another attacker is slammed to the ground by a kick from Kiri. She asks if that really is their elite. The attackers lie defeated, cursing them. William says enough and declares it's time to end those hindering their plans. Devo recognizes the fire arrow, similar to Elpem's but much faster, almost hitting his head. The entire field then explodes. William smiles, saying his arrow is much faster than the others. He thinks it's over and says now they just need to subjugate the gate. But he is startled when Elpham is in front fine. William glares, asking who he is. Elpham just points a finger and warns that they have a visitor coming. From the bushes, a pig emerges. The men are startled and get trampled by the herd. The beast collapses in agony. William manages to survive but realizes it's getting tough. They have to kill a lot of those pigs. Now everyone is tired, even though the beasts are dead. William says they don't have time to reorganize and need to pursue this guy immediately. Remembering Elpham, he knows it will be a big problem if that guy escapes. William feels a bad sensation and warns that if they find the cloaked guy, they should inform him as he wants to defeat him alone. The man says there's no need for that, but William says it's impossible to exist someone stronger than him in that gate. In the forest, Divo is smiling, asking if they were going to die to pigs. Elpham says obviously not, but he should be careful of the traps. Divo asks why Elpham didn't kill the guy. It would have been much easier. Elpham says those guys are stronger than them. He paid close attention to that flaming arrow. As he was heading toward Divo, he conjured one too. The aim was to explode it, but the guy's arrow went through his. The only thing he managed to do was alter its trajectory a bit. Divo laughs, saying it's impossible. The boss had to be stronger. Elpham says he's not joking and asks if they really escaped. He says yes. He unties part of his leather armor, showing his second circle is at the limit of thickness. This means he can't get stronger unless he advances to the third circle. This means the two should have equal strength, but that guy won. If he is in this gate, he must have two circles, meaning he somehow got stronger. Divo is shocked when he says that guy is the strongest explorer here. Divo suggests using the goblins against that guy, but Elpham says it's impossible since the goblins are intelligent. Suddenly someone says he doesn't understand the situation. It's Kari saying the Black Mage infiltrated the Signos Knights. This is something dangerous that will alter the nation's destiny. They need to leave now. With her hand trembling on her sword, she says they must abandon the subjugation. But Elpham tells her not to waste time saying that. Kari responds that this is expected from a slave eager to grab a lot of items. But Elpham explains that nothing will happen if she leaves and warns the world. The followers of the Black Mages have deep roots in society. Leaving now and warning people will only make them hide even more. No one knows who is who. She gets angry and tells him to stop saying things won't work and suggests a concrete plan. Elpham calmly says they just have to show them who the real hunters are. Through the forest, William's group is hunting them. They know if they escape, their lives are at stake. Suddenly, Divo appears right behind them. He nearly strikes, but the guy ducks. They call him an idiot digging his own grave. But someone cuts a rope and a log slams into the guy's back. Ayo, what you mean by that? It was Kari who was right next to him. Divo says he was too distracted and charges again. But the guy dodges and finds an opportunity to go for his neck. Divo sidesteps and knees him in the chin. Being so close, he drops his axe, grabs him in a hold and starts pounding him UFC style. The poor guy's face gets crushed. Nearby, a girl is trying to aim but is afraid of hitting her friend. She doesn't notice Kari behind her. Kari swings her sword, but the girl ducks. Kari attacks again, nearly hitting her neck. The girl retreats, but Kari comes straight at her. She manages to block with her bow in time. Kari tells her it's best for trash like her to focus on the battle. Elsewhere, William says everyone has started. He's just curious about one thing. Was that guy really waiting for him? Obviously, it was Elpham. Both activate their staffs, and he says they should start quickly. It's flaming arrows from both sides. The guy's arrow is faster, forcing Elpham to dodge, but he manages to fire his own. The guy was impressed, saying Elpham was surprising. The area exploded, and when the smoke cleared, something was already coming at Elpham's face, but he realized it was just a rock. The guy was already behind him, asking if that was all he had. He activated a close-range fire arrow, causing an explosion around Elpham. The forest caught fire. Elpham had survived, but wasn't in the best condition. William asked if he had nullified the attack, noting that Elpham didn't have firepower, so how did he do it? Elpham didn't respond. William said that since Elpham didn't want to talk, they should continue the fight. He would figure it out himself and fired another fire arrow. Elpham activated revolver, sending a spinning arrow to break the attack. William realized Elpham used psychic power to turn the fire arrow into a drill. He had never seen anything like it. Another explosion occurred in the forest. Now William was in bad shape, though impressed, saying he understood what Elpham was doing. It seemed he was one of those called geniuses, a type William hated the most. He wanted to see more of what Elpham was capable of and send another attack. Elpham activated telekinesis and created a stone barrier. The attack broke the stones, but Elpham dodged to the side. William asked what he was doing and if that was the best idea he had. But Elpham activated telekinesis again and a fire arrow appeared behind William, who barely defended himself. With another hand movement, the arrow ricocheted and William had to dodge again. He kept jumping, crouching, and spinning to escape. Suddenly, he launched an attack, saying he was tired of playing. Elpham calmly looked and sent another revolver attack, causing an explosion in front of William. But William smiled, saying Elpham finally used both abilities and then activated a poisonous breath from behind. Elpham was caught off guard and the smoke covered the entire forest. William was now confident, saying he understood that Elpham had firepower and telekinesis. With both on cooldown, there was nothing Elpham could do. Elpham stood still, and William said he would stay like that for 30 minutes. He drew a dagger, apologizing but saying he was also on cooldown. But now was his favorite time, eager to see Elpham's desperate face. But suddenly, Elpham was right in front of him with a punch ready, smashing the guy's face in. William's eye bulged as he was sent flying back. We then see a conversation between Ibru and Devo, where Ibru asks how Elpham defeated the poisonous mushroom. Devo, drunk and laughing, said he would tell because it was something anyone else could do. It was an ability Elpham called Room. Using telekinesis, he absorbed everything in the air. Ibru said it was very overpowered, and Devo agreed. The boss was indeed overpowered. Now Elpham was pummeling William, delivering elbows and kicks. The poor guy was already missing some teeth. Another blow to the chin was followed by a sequence to the chest. This mage fight turned into a USC match, with William being slammed against the tree. Without stopping for a second, Elpham activated telekinesis and pulled his staff, preparing a fire arrow and shooting it at William. William agonized for a moment, but it was too late. He was pierced through. This fire arrow struck hard in the like button that helps Momoro make more juicy content for his viewers. This story keeps getting better. It's just sad that the three redheads died so quickly. Not much time was spent on their designs. But I'm sure with the quality of the art, more strong, thick, circular characters will appear soon. To not miss the next parts, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out. Do you remember that the last chapter ended when Elpham had just shot William with an arrow right in the chest? The guy with the small arm fell to the ground, agonized, and activated something on his ring. Immediately, a green smoke went towards Elpham, but he used telekinesis to pull all that poison away. He realized that the guy pretended to have gone mad to find a chance to escape. Seeing the staff on the ground, he knew that was the guy's only chance to win this fight. What he didn't expect was a fireball coming at his back, hitting him squarely. Our guy's face was smashed, and he was blown to the ground. William celebrated, saying that he was a bastard and deserved to burn to death. Our guy spat out blood, realizing he had slipped up. He didn't expect the guy to have such a rare item hidden with him. He knew this was a serious mistake he wouldn't have made in his past life, and just before being blown up, he said he was slipping up a lot. The explosion happened at the top of the forest, and Diva looked to the side, calling for the boss. Suddenly, the head of the guy who was against him fell to the ground with a cut from Kiri. She told Divo to handle it quickly, because they needed to help Elpham. But at that moment, an arrow hit the guy's eye. However, it wasn't support, it was an army of goblins heading their way. Kiri said they would have to handle it, but Diva warned that it wasn't as easy as she thought, especially considering the guy on the throne. The goblin calling just stared at him, smiling. Meanwhile, William wondered if that bastard was finally dead. He wasn't in good shape either and spat out a lot of blood, but then he started laughing, saying that the kid wasn't so bad after all. He should have at least found out his name before killing him. Then someone said, Elpham. The guy was already startled, saying it was impossible. Our guy walked out of the fire and said that this was the last name he would hear in his life. William said he was a cockroach and should give up because there was no way to win with that item. Elpham agreed but said it was only the case while he was in the second circle. The guy saw that he had a magic stone in his hand and started laughing at him, asking if he was stupid enough to believe he would evolve by consuming that. He had to understand that for the third circle, he would need much more experience. But our guy just said he knew very well that experience and knowledge were necessary. At this, William's smile started to fade. As the third circle formed on his arm, Elpham said that experience was the one thing he had in abundance. Realizing he was about to evolve, William jumped towards him, saying he wouldn't let that happen. He sent 2 fire arrows, but our guy also sent one right after. His arrow, now with 3 circles, easily pierced through William, who was forced to create a flame orb. However, our guy uses telekinesis to create a rotation, piercing William's orb. And now the inevitable happens. The arrow crosses the entire field. A few seconds later, the whole forest is burned. Along the way, only the remains of the guy were left. Man, that guy was incinerated. Elpham says he forgot to ask that guy's name. In the forest, the army was searching the entire area. Behind a tree, Kiri was with Divo in her arms. Some time ago, he had launched an attack and was easily cutting through all the creatures. She was impressed, wondering how that guy without any equipment could defeat them so easily. Divo smiled, saying that the movement of those creatures was slow and very predictable. He easily dodged, found an opening, and went to hit one in the head. However, he was swept away by a fireball that exploded on the ground. The wizard smiled, and Kiri immediately recognized that he had activated a flame orb. Now behind the tree, she had no idea how a monster could use a skill like that. While she was thinking about her next action, a monster was coming from behind to grab them both. She dodged at the last second and started running, carrying Divo. The problem was that one of the creatures appeared right in front of her. She pulled the boy up and threw him into the air while slicing the monster. She still caught him in her arms, and it turned into a princess carry. The problem was that a barrage of fire passed by, and the goblin was just laughing from afar. She knew that as long as that monster was there, they couldn't escape. Another attack approached and exploded near them. The goblin smiled, but amidst the smoke, he saw something strange. Devo was standing there, intact or at least almost intact, right? Carrie called out to him asking what was wrong. Without any response, he simply jumped towards the goblins. The leader ordered the group to attack, but he easily cut through them. One found an opening in his back, but he dodged in time and sliced him in half as well. The goblin took advantage of his distraction and exploded the entire field. Kiri couldn't understand how that was possible, and in the next instant, Devo was already on top of the shaman. To her, it made no sense for someone so strong to be in the first circle. As the halberd was about to hit the shaman's face, he cast a spell and Devo fell again. I thought he was going to have an epic scene, but he just fell, destroyed, into the girl's arms. However, he made the beast pay the price. Half of its face was gone. Furious, it raised its staff, throwing a fireball towards them. Kiri told Devo to run, that she would hold the beast there, and at the same moment, it launched another attack. But suddenly, another arrow came spinning, cutting the shaman's attack in half and heading towards him. The poor guy was pierced through, and the entire group was in disbelief. Kiri had no idea who did it, but we already know by the little hand. It was Elpam, who said that at least he wasn't late. Outside, the guy is dying of sleep, saying it's been 3 days and they haven't received any news from the people. That's when he sees a group listening and wonders what the commotion is about. Strangely, the portal starts shaking and suddenly cracks in the middle. The entire tree that supported it breaks, and a man calls for a priest, saying it looks like they have some survivors. But the guy questions that. The people on the ground didn't seem to have survived that much. Sometime later, Elpam wakes up. He's in a room, and the red-bearded guy says he finally got up. Without wasting time, he already tells him that he will have to explain very well how only the 3 of them survived all that. He better explain now what happened inside that gate. Elpam replies that he had his doubts, but he didn't imagine everyone would actually die. The guy tells him to explain, and he says there was a demon inside. He says he doesn't know the creature's name, so he asks for a paper to draw it. As soon as the guy sees it, he is shocked and says he understands what happened. The people gather in a cabin and all comment that it's unbelievable the entire group was defeated by this creature. A guy named Toriel yells that his cousin was in that group. Then the guy shows Elpam's drawing, saying that it was that goblin who caused this disaster. People already comment that this is one of the few creatures that know how to use items, which makes it extremely lethal. However, a guy twirls his mustache, saying he doesn't accept that. He says that should have been difficult, but Natasha would never have lost to those. This guy's name is Franco, and the redhead asks what he means by that. Franco says they were definitely attacked from behind. People comment that there's no way to know what happened and that the 3 who survived are from the same affiliation. However, Reiken tells everyone to be quiet and asks if they are accusing the Gaper merchants. This makes Franco ask if he really believes that the Gaper people were stronger than the trade union. Reiken responds that they have been improving a lot lately and seem to be taking their position. They laugh in each other's faces while people just want it to end. Then Franco says that for him to say that, he must have some kind of proof. Reiken says the biggest proof is that they didn't bring any items, so it would make sense for them to have killed the people. Elpam says goodbye, and the guy says they can go. One of the subordinates asks Ronco if it's right to let those guys go like that. He says there's nothing more to be done since everything is concluded. As they were walking in the forest, a snail was watching. Carrie said that apparently the creature really followed. The little thing came out from behind the tree and kept watching them. Inside the gate, Carrie asked why he was hesitating so much. Now that they had eliminated the dark cult, they just needed to get hurt and leave as if they were the last survivors. Elpam was staring. In his pocket was the phoenix feather. He mentioned that he killed the boss and received a certain item. The feather increases fire skill damage by 30%, and unlike any other item, it is cumulative. The existence of this item explains why everyone also died there in the past life. It is something he cannot leave behind. Carrie warned that if they left with items they didn't receive, they would be suspects, since no one else survived. She told him to stop being greedy and forget about it. At that moment, something caught their attention. They saw the snail. That creature was a kind of pet that, unlike any other monster, had no interest in battles and only in collecting items. Now outside, the little thing pulls out the 2 phoenix feathers. Kiri said that it looks like his plan worked, but she asked what they would do now. Elpam said that these people were already infiltrated within the Sign Knights. That means this information cannot be discovered. However, with the disappearance of this item, these guys will soon show up. Someone crumpled a piece of paper, asking how it was possible to have failed. Kneeling, the woman explained that all the groups died except for 3 people from the Gaper merchants. The positive side is that, despite their failure, their identity was not revealed. However, in front of the window, the man looked back and asked why she thought they were not revealed. If they failed, it's because William's group died, but no one mentioned it. Perhaps they realized that the group there was not just simple merchants, but had someone above them. The woman warned that if this was true, they would have to remove the spies from all the other groups. However, the man said that if that was what they wanted, it would make an invitation for them to become the 101st group that failed in a certain mission. The next chapter says it was all like hell, living in absolute poverty and having no choice but to watch his sister die of disease. He couldn't even be there on the day of her death. A woman smiled and said that it seemed like someone was still alive. Staring at Devo, she asked if he needed help. He told her to leave, and that was Devo's first encounter with Iran. In the middle of a battle, a dog attacked and Devo cut it in half. The guys commented that he was improving a lot, but his movements were exaggerated. Eren turned and asked if it was time for them to continue. 1 year was enough time to completely change the way Devo saw things. Eren was a cold person but protected humanity by killing all the creatures in her path. The group walked into a cave and the guys teased Devo for calling himself Eren's disciple. As they went deeper, it said the atmosphere there seemed to be changing. A little earlier, the black-haired girl had begged to join Eren's group to go into those mines. Eren said she wouldn't accept the mission and that the clause requiring her presence would only be a hindrance. Besides, her older brother was probably already dead, so it was better to forget about it. At that moment, Devo called out to her and said they were the girl's last hope. He would help but would be responsible for the girl's protection in that place. In the cave near a body, she asked if it was her brother and the girl said no. She found it strange because he had died right there when suddenly something came crashing down from above. The ground was destroyed and everyone was thrown back. Devo quickly got up, telling the girl to stay behind him. That creature was called Zakun and was a raid boss. Eren defended against the attack and told Devo to go to the left. He moved in, saying they would finish this quickly, and the whole group advanced. While they fought the monster, the girl just watched. A while later, Devo said that one was hard to take down. However, at that moment, one of the knights asked where Shannon was. He saw a piece of her clothing and wondered if she had gone to that place alone. Eren told them to be careful because she felt an even worse energy coming from there. People talked about how this could be possible, and Devo said he would bring the girl back. He apologized, saying he was responsible and would have to resolve this. However, Eren said she would go with him, stating that the creature, there was a threat to the world, so it was her duty to stop it. The whole group agreed and they went. The place was full of lava, and under a tree, the girl stood still. They called out to Shannon, and she was there beside a corpse. Eren was just watching and Devo told Shannon not to worry, he would rescue her. Crying, the girl said that in the end he really came. But unfortunately, she wouldn't be going back and asked if he knew the meaning of the word Zakun, explaining that it means demon tree and that the monster above was just a piece. The real creature was the one she was under. Devo seemed confused and Eren said she would handle it. Approaching the tree, she told them to leave because it was too dangerous and asked Shannon if she was using her brother as a sacrifice. The girl said it seemed she didn't understand. Everything had already begun the moment they stepped in there. Zakun is a creature specialized in possession and can control much more than just a statue. At that moment, one of the allies stabs Devo in the back. Eren turns to see what is happening, and another ally is coming to spear him. The explosion happens, and Devo asks what Miria is doing, but realizes he is possessed, questioning why he killed their friends. Shannon warns that everything is futile since they are now the target of revenge, and it's time for the grand finale, stating that everything there has to be done by the Dark Mage. Devo can't understand if the girl was possessed by Zakun. Eren shouts that they have been possessed, so he has to kill them or he will die. Miria is just watching and Eren jumps and slashes at him. Meanwhile, Devo doesn't know what to do. He feels guilty since he convinced the group to come to this place. He jumps towards Miria and lands a blow on his stomach. He apologizes, but at the same moment, Miria comes to hit him in the face. However, Devo doesn't hesitate and cuts him in half. As he dies, the curse is lifted and Miria thanks him, telling him to take care of Eren. Eren is jumping towards the monster, asking if that is its final form. The problem is that every time she attacks, the monster easily defends itself. She falls to the ground and jumps again towards the beast, saying she will destroy it, while Devo comes from the other side. Both advance and land a series of slashes on the creature. It had to protect itself from an attack, and Shannon took the opportunity to go after it. At that moment, Eren passed by and cut the girl down as well. Now all that remained in that place were statues. Devo was about to say it wouldn't be so easy when he felt something strange. At that moment, Eren asked what was happening and he screamed for her to kill him before he got possessed. She just gripped her weapon and apologized. Devo smiled, thinking that this way was better. At least this would be the price he paid for the foolish act of bringing everyone to this place. He screamed for Eren to do it quickly, but when he opened his eyes, he wondered why his sister was there. Eren's face was approaching and she told him not to worry, that she would finish this quickly. However, Devo went mad and asked how she had the courage to kill his weapon. She dodged an attack from the demon, and at the same moment, Devo was already face to face with it. She managed to duck, but he delivered a blow to the girl's head. However, in the middle of the strike, he also landed a kick, sending her flying backward. Eren was struggling to deal with Devo. She launched an attack, saying that no matter how good his reflexes were, he didn't stand a chance. He was about to be buried, and she appeared behind him. When he looked, it was too late, and she launched a barrage of ice. Devo was thrown back, and at the same moment, Eren jumped towards the boss, declaring that she was going to finish it. A giant bear appeared behind her, but Devo appeared on the boss's forehead and jumped towards him. Eren apologized, saying this was her only chance and launched an attack in Devo's direction. A while later, he got up, asking what had happened to Zakun. Eren said that at least he woke up in the end. She had taken Devo's attack and said that she could at least say goodbye. Devo screamed, asking what had happened. He remembered telling her to kill him. So why did this happen? Eren told him to forget it and understand that she had failed in the war 800 years ago. She no longer had what it took to stop the dark mages, and his talent at this age was much greater than what she had. Desperate, Divo said she couldn't leave like this. But Eren just smiled and said she was leaving the world of Maple to him since he promised he was her only disciple. That's how Eren died, and Divo had to break the news to all the heroes. Once again, he followed the path of hell. He had failed to protect the purpose given to him. The creature's attack was about to hit him when he closed his eyes and everything exploded. With that, he opened his eyes and was in bed, exhausted. The boy's sister said he talked a lot at night and asked if he was having a nightmare. He got up feeling exhausted, saying he didn't remember anything. She told him to get out because they had some visitors. As soon as he saw Elpum, the protagonist told him to get ready because they were leaving. The poor guy wondered if there was no break. In the conversation with Reiken, he explained that he survived because he gained another circle. However, Reiken was sure that this damn kid was planning something and banged on the table, saying he should remember he would only get paid if he provided good information. Elpum ignored him, went to his bag and pulled out 2 million months, stating that his debts were now paid. The boss had no idea where he got so much money since they hadn't paid him nearly that much. He then clapped, congratulated Elpum on being a free explorer, and asked if he wanted to sign the contract. Elpum immediately said it would be 50 million months. Evis was shocked, saying that no place in the world would pay that much for a rank C explorer. The protagonist just got up and said the conversation was over then. Outside, Devo asked how it went. Elpum said the guy refused the 50 million months. Devo asked if he had lost his mind, and our boy said no. Then he turns and asks why they are there in the slums he has struggled so much to leave. Walking through, the girls call out for some fun. Suddenly, a guy is thrown from a building and lands in front of them. He gets up, saying he thought things were going well. Devo says it looks like a fight is about to break out. The guy on the ground immediately asks why the brothers took so long. He clings to Devo, asking for help, saying he misses him a lot. One of the thugs points and says they will have to pay the 3 million that their friend owes. The guy behind Devo smiles, saying he's lying and he didn't steal anything. The chubby thug asks if they want to die, and then takes 3 bundles of 1 million to the face. Elpum says the debt is paid and they better disappear. Devo is shocked, but Elpum just stares and tells Ralph to come with them. The guy is confused that the boy knows him. In one of the alleys, Ralph asks if they want to recruit him and how much they will pay. Elpum says he doesn't have anything at the moment because he spent everything to free the boy. Ralph asks which group they are with, and he says none. Ralph says he's not interested in joining. Devo says Ralph is brave to say that after making the boss lose 3 million. Ralph asks who told them to pay it. Considering they came from so far away, they must know his skills very well. He would accept 3 million. While they were discussing, someone called out to them. The girl introduced herself as Beiju from the Merchants of Kania and asked which of them was Elpum. Our boy recognized the group and introduced himself. She approached, saying it was an honor to meet the person who survived the gate of 100 people. She said she would get straight to the point and wanted to invite him to a group. However, he would have to pass the test on the subjugation gate. He would receive 3 million just for entering and another 15 million if he completed it. Our boy smiled, and in the next scene, Beiju was already leaving, saying she would see them in 3 days. Devo said they were very lucky, and with that, Elpum handed the money to Ralph, telling him the contract was made now that it was paid. Ralph would join them for this gate and would receive 7 million if they completed it. Devo was confused about why the boss put 10 million on the line for this guy. He ignored it and said they had to hurry for their last meeting. Devo was getting furious again. They went to meet Kuri, the powerful knight. He asked why that woman was there, and she told him to shut up. I like this work because it gets straight to the point. It was already the day of the gate, and there were 50 people. Ralph was angry, saying there were now too many people to share the items with. Bijou appears and says that the gate is of orange ranking with a maximum of 50 people and a limit of 3 circles. Ralph knew he would be called, but he didn't expect it to be in this place. Even though it's now a different timeline, he completed this gate before, so the plan remains. Someone mentions sending a signal when they find the second gate, and Devo is confused. Carrie explains that some dungeons have 2 dungeons within them. Basically, they are 2 explorations since the places are completely different from each other. Ralph gathers everyone and says he has a little problem. He was recruited but didn't agree with the hierarchy, so it would be good to decide based on skills. Elpum smiles and says the guy is very greedy. They will choose the leader based on who will contribute the most to this gate. Ralph thinks it's good to know. As soon as he becomes the leader, things will get interesting. With that, everyone enters the gate and Devo says he's excited to earn those 15 million. Ralph says he doubts he will come out alive and Devo challenges him to a duel, making a friendly gesture. But Ralph says he's not in the mood to fight unless it's for money. Devo enters and is shocked to see everyone already dead inside. There was no time to draw his weapon and he was already thrown to the ground. He has no idea what kind of creature is attacking with its tongue. He almost gets hit, but Ralph comes in and kicks the creature, pinning it against the wall. Ralph tells the boy to calm down and Kiri finds it strange that the monsters are already there. The number of creatures keeps increasing. Elpam uses his fire magic and telekinesis to eliminate the creatures. Carrie jumps, activates Sunrise, and tries to slash, but the creature dodges. She tries to cut its head off, but the creature escapes again. She can't understand the movements, and the monster hits her in the chest, knocking her to the ground. The creatures come at her, but everything explodes at that moment. Behind her, Divo is also pinned by the monster, unable to understand its pattern. Something hits its head, and the monster is blown against the wall. It's Ralph, who says that with this, he has saved Divo's ass twice now. Carrie thinks that someone with 3 circles is really different, but the monster jumps at Ralph, who disintegrates it with one punch. He dodges the attack of another and hits in the face. Seeing Elpam from afar using telekinesis to guide and kill many creatures, he thinks that guy is very useful. Considering they want to pay $15 million for him, it looks like he's going to make a lot of money with the boy. He gets all excited, imagining himself swimming in money, saying he's going to get very rich off him. Meanwhile, Carrie doesn't understand why that bastard Ralph is having so much fun in the middle of all of this. However, Ralph keeps advancing, and the creatures don't stand a chance until he gets a kick in the ribs from Elpam. He is thrown back and asks why he did that. But in the next second, a barrage of arrows rains down on the entire area. Ralph asks who the bastard is, and from a distance, a guy prepares another barrage of attacks, and Elpam recognizes the direction. He throws himself into the middle of the creatures while the attacks come at him. The archer is just observing, and as soon as he locates Elpam, he conjures a fire arrow. Before he can dodge, the thing is almost in his face. The forest explodes, and Ralph is impressed with how quickly Elpam adapted to the fight. Divo shouts for him to be careful. When Elpam looks back, there's another sequence of arrows coming. The place explodes, and now our boy is already exhausted, and the dance has just begun. He wonders why his attack didn't hit and why it came from behind. Carrie shouts that they have to get out of there now. When Ralph looks up, there's a rain of arrows coming at them. Some of the other adventurers try to flee, but are soon pierced. Carrie uses a solar slash to defend and tells everyone to run or die. The problem is that the forest is full of monsters, so they have no escape. Until a flame attack opens a path and Elpam says to just follow. Ralph immediately says he'll go first, and with that, everyone runs. The problem is that the rain of arrows is still active and several adventurers are dying. Divo warns that they won't get out alive. Our boy turns and shoots a fire arrow in the direction the attacks are coming from. He then turns to Divo and tells him to listen. The guy launching the arrows wonders how the hell Elpam knows his location. Now it's clear why the Lord was so worried about this Elpam. He apologizes but says goodbye, sending an attack in his direction. However, Elpam is dodging each arrow, and the guy says this agility doesn't make sense. Then he realizes that chasing a group of 6, meaning one is missing. He knows it's the guy with the halberd, but it's too late because there's a flame attack coming from behind. Elpam used the conjuration item he stole from the guy and charged Divo's halberd to deceive him. Divo was all happy, smiling, saying the plan was a success until he gets pierced by an arrow. Man, the smile didn't last long, and the boy falls to the ground. At the same moment, another arrow is coming at Elpam. Meanwhile, the rain of arrows continues to fall on the entire group. The other adventurers are being pierced while Kiri runs to try to save Divo again. However, this time it's not easy, and she takes a hit to the calf. With that, they both fall to the ground, and another attack is already coming. Now it's Ralph who has to grab the 2 and flee with everyone. The archer says they can try as much as they want to escape, but it's impossible to get out of his sight. The guy appears, notices something, and Ralph asks why the boss sent them in this direction. Divo tells them to just obey, and as soon as they pass through the bushes, they find the second gate. Ralph is in disbelief that Elpam already knew this. At least now, with more than 100 meters from the enemy, he can save everyone. What he didn't notice is that there's an attack coming from the front. Divo falls to the ground, and Ralph wonders how this is possible. Before he can react, he's almost pierced. However, Divo's halberd flies with telekinesis and protects Ralph. Divo realizes who did that and sees a trump rising. He knows what's going to happen, and the 3 are struck and thrown towards the second gate. With that, everyone goes up, and the archer wonders how that bastard did something like this. A shadow runs through the forest, killing another creature. It's the archer who can't understand why this guy is trying to buy so much time. However, he says that if Elpam wants to play this way, so be it. In the 13th year, he was chosen by Lord Vox. There was a selection process with 300 assassins who would survive by killing each other. The massacre lasted 7 days, and in the end, only he remained, receiving the name Phantom. He notices something and shoots again, but it was another monster. He doesn't know where Elpam is, and a fire arrow flies past him. He starts to flee, thinking the boy isn't that bad. However, he made a mistake by attacking him because his position was discovered. The attack cuts through the tree, but once again, Elpam isn't there. At the same moment, a fire arrow is revealed. The fire curves around the tree and is almost at the poor guy's head. He dodges the explosion and wonders if Elpam used psychokinesis to hide his position. As soon as he touches the ground, he starts running again, but there are 2 more fire arrows coming at him. He pulls the bow and explodes everything in the air. The problem is that the flames from the explosion blinded him for a second. At the same moment, there was already an arrow coming from behind. He turns and manages to make a quick shot to defend himself, but is exploded again and thrown to the ground. He starts getting angry, saying he can't believe this, but things were getting interesting. Nearby, Elpham had noticed a sudden silence. He knew that if the guy was hiding, things would get difficult and unpredictable. In the past life, there was no one as skilled in the gate, so this must be an assassin sent by Kenya. Suddenly, someone shouts, ordering Elpham to show himself. He finds it strange that the shout came from a completely different direction than he thought the guy was. The man opens his arms, telling him to stop wasting time because he knows he won't gain anything by hiding. Shouting to the heavens, he says he has heard so much about him, but in the end, it's a shame he's a coward. While running, Elpham knows it's impossible for this guy to have moved so much without making a sound. This means he is using a teleport shot. The guy then says he found him and launches a barrage from behind. The scene shifts to a snowy mountain, with the three friends falling on the other side of the gate. Devo asks if they are really going to flee without the boss. However, Ralph says that if the guy wanted to stay, it's because he has a plan. Then Divo notices a pile of skeletons on the ground and asks what the hell is going on and why there is a mountain of corpses in this place. Kiri says that apparently all of this is the work of the bastards from Kenya. They are probably followers of the dark mages and are using this gate to get rid of other explorers. Ralph apologizes, saying they'll have to save this conversation for later. The boss of that house seemed a little irritated. In front of them was a giant yeti. They couldn't understand why the boss was already outside the gate. Ralph said that apparently he will have to pay the rent this time and says they are lucky. It's not something he shows to everyone. This is how other adventurers define Ralph as a person, a complete scumbag and a lazy bum. Basically someone who joins groups just to steal money. However, if you ask who Ralph is as an explorer, everyone says he is extremely useful and has extraordinary skills. He is probably the best healer ever seen with 3 circles. Immediately, he heals Kiri and Devo. He notices his wounds are healing very quickly. Apparently, the bastard wasn't a fighter, but a bishop. Poor Kiri can't believe he was taking down monsters as a healer. He just says that if they are healed, they should get to work, especially since the boss there seems ready. The monster goes to grab him and starts running. The monster punches the ground and someone helps Kiri and Devo. It comes to bite and breaks the rock in half. However, Devo clung to the tooth and took the opportunity to hit it in the eye. Kiri comes from the side and manages to land a slash as well. However, the monster comes with its hand to grab Devo, but something interrupts the attack and it ends up falling. It was Ralph who suddenly stepped in and kicked it. The creature tries to punch, but he dodges and runs up its arm. In mid-air, while dodging, he still manages to heal Kiri along the way. Devo is impressed. The guy is on the front line, healing and still fighting. Ralph then says the first one was free, but from now on, they will have to pay. Pulling out a grimoire and activating a blessing, Kiri feels much stronger than before.